Welcome to this episode of Silver Expertise, Lessons of a Life Lived. So what I'm going to share with you today is probably the craziest, most dangerous situation I've ever been in. And that's why the title of this is called $4 Million, 3 Bodyguards, and a Trip to Hell. So let's talk about the story. So going back, this is back in 2014, 2015-ish. A friend of mine, great gal, works for the Archdiocese of New Jersey, the Catholic Church. And one day she approached me and she said, hey, she goes, I met this guy at church. Great guy, but he's made some poor decisions and he is going away to federal prison for 4 years. And I would like for you to meet him. And I was like, well, why should I meet this guy? So he owned a casino in Trinidad, but he also owned a marina, a boat building company, and he wanted to redo the marina and create a restaurant, dive shop, fishing tackle shop, all that good stuff. So he said he needs someone to do this while he's away for 4 years in prison. So I went to his house. He was under house arrest, had a nice little ankle bracelet that some people are unfortunate enough to get, and sat down with him, talked to him, kind of went through what he was looking to do, and it sounded interesting. It sounded interesting at the time, and I said, well, I would probably have to go check it out. So he was like, well, you want to go next week? I'll fly you there, first class. So I'm like, okay. So buys me a ticket, first class ticket on Caribbean Air. Care to guess how much that first class ticket was? Even back in 2015, it was $400. First class on Caribbean Air at the time was worse than coach on an American carrier. It was horrible. I was flying out at night, doing the red eye. For those of you that don't know where Trinidad is, I wasn't exactly sure. I knew it was in the Caribbean, but it is actually all the way down by South America. It is 6 miles off of the coast of Venezuela. Huge oil industry down there. A lot of American companies down there have oil platforms and have been drilling oil for years and years and years and years. So there's a contingent of Americans there. I thought it was an interesting place to go to. So he tells me that his driver is going to drive me to the airport, JFK, international flight. So I'm going to go to JFK, and his driver picks me up and heading to the airport. And as we're driving up, he turns the light on the car and he goes, here, let me take a picture with his phone. And I said, who's that for? He goes, that's for your primary bodyguard when you get to Trinidad. Really? Bodyguard? Okay. I said, can I see a picture of my bodyguard so I know what he looks like? He goes, sure. Shares a picture with me and said, when you go ahead and arrive in Trinidad, you'll go through customs, and then your bodyguard, Denrick was his name, will be waiting for you once you get out. So I fly overnight on non-luxurious Caribbean Air, land in Port of Spain, the capital of Trinidad, go through customs, and I am met by Denrick. Denrick is about 5, well, I'm 6'6", so I'm Sasquatch, but Denrick is about 5'8", 5'9", with a cannon, like Dirty Harry movies back in the 70s, Clint Eastwood, with a cannon out in the open under his arm. And he's like, great to meet you. Wonderful. So we get in the car. He's taking me to my hotel. I was staying at the Sheraton there in Port of Spain. It was a decent American hotel, not bad. So as we're driving to the hotel, he starts to tell me that I'm not allowed to go out by myself. I'm not allowed to leave the hotel property by myself. I don't even dare thinking about jumping in a cab and going shopping for anything or sightseeing. He said, you will not leave the hotel without me or someone escorting you. Okay. So as we're driving to the hotel, I'm looking around, observing, and a lot of the homes have 6, 8 foot, 10 foot cement walls. A lot of them have razor wire around them. Almost looks kind of like Baghdad or, Afghanistan, Kabul. And I'm like, what's up with all this? And he goes, crime here is really bad. Okay. So I get to the hotel, check in, and I get my room, and I go on my phone and I start looking up, Trinidad. And at the time, I recently read some Trinidadian news just for shits and giggles. And at the time, it was one of the top 5 deadliest places to go to in the world. Right up there with Afghanistan, Iraq at the time. I'm like, wow, okay, what did I get myself into? So I'm looking forward to seeing the marina. I'm looking forward to seeing the boat building company. But I'm told that, Mr. We'll call him Fred, Mr. Fred, not his real name, Mr. Fred would like you to see his casino. So I'm like, I don't need to see the casino. He's like, no, no, no. He wants you to see the casino because he wants to see where the money comes from to fund, the marina and the boat building company. Okay. So he said, tonight a van is going to pick you up with a couple of gentlemen and they're going to take you to the casino. Okay. So I got a text message to meet the van down at the front door of the Sheraton at 7 o'clock. So I go down, 7 o'clock. I'm sitting there patiently waiting, and a blue van with no windows pulls up, and three Rastafarian gentlemen jump out. No kidding. Yellow, green, and red hat, the dreads, Bob Marley shirts. Not kidding. They were awesome. They get out with machine guns, and they're like, Mr. Dave, we're here to take you to the casino. And I'm like, okay. Jump in the van. We are driving to the casino. I'm sitting on a milk crate in the back of this van, no seats in the back. Definitely crazy stuff. So we get to the casino, and just to give you an idea of, in America, we think of casinos, Las Vegas, Atlantic City, all that great stuff. This is more like in a strip mall, very, very small. It's like a store almost, like a medium-sized store in a strip mall. So we pull up to, I believe it was called the Bazaar. It was bizarre as well as a bazaar. And it was 2 floors. We get out of the van and I look up the building and there's bullet holes, marks all over the building. And I said, hey guys, what's the bullets from? He goes, well, they try to rob us at least once a month and there's usually a big shootout. Okay. So go through 2 metal detectors to go into the casino. And they escort me to the back room. Now, the back room is kind of like, I guess you would say like in the casinos that you see here in the U.S., the big bulletproof glass with the tellers, but there's a huge steel door that you have to get buzzed into, kind of like the back room where, everything happens, the money is, and all that kind of good stuff. So they buzz me in, and I walk in, and I have a gun in my face, pointed directly at my face. Young gal, she's maybe 40, short, bright pink hair, couple of 3, 6, 8 or 9 or 10 piercings, bars in her ears, eyebrows, lips, nose. And I slowly put my hands up and I said, I'm Dave. Fred told me to come here and said that you were going to be expecting me. And she goes, yes. I said, okay, can you put the gun down? And she slowly put the gun down, opened up her desk drawer, threw it in. And I said, so what's your name? And she goes, my name is Poise. Really? So is that your birth name, your nickname, your stripper name, your stage name? She goes, I have the name Poison because I make bad things happen to bad people. And I'm just sitting there saying, we are not in Kansas anymore. I'm saying, what the hell am I doing here? So we start to talk and we start discussing Fred. We start talking about the marina, talking about the boat company. And she goes ahead and pulls out a stack of money, which was about $2,000 in Trinidadian money. And she slides it across the desk. And I said, what's this for? And she said, you go out and gamble and you win, you and I split the profits 50-50. I politely slid the money back to her and I said, no, Poison, thank you, but no thank you. I said, if I want to gamble, I have my own money. I will go see the register and cash in for some Trinidadian money and I'll play. She goes, no, 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 you play with our money. You play with our money. And she pushed and I pushed back. She pushed me and I pushed back. I said, Poison, in our country, they call this stealing. I said, Fred didn't tell me anything about this. And if he did, that's great. I would be more than happy to play. But as far as I'm concerned, that's his money. And unless he told me that he was giving me this money to play, and if I won, I could keep it, never mind share it with you, that's all fine and good. I said, but he told me nothing and I am not taking the money. So she gets a little pissed. At this point in time, I need a serious drink. So I go out to the bar and order myself a Jack Daniels on the rocks. And 1 Jack Daniels, 2 Jack Daniels. Looking around, Poison comes back out and sits down next to me. And she pulls out $2,000 and she puts it in front of me. She goes, you need to go play. I said, I don't need to do anything. I said, I'm not taking the money. I said, I told you in our country, they call that stealing. And I said, unless you get Fred on the phone right now and he says, Dave, take my money, play in the casino and have fun, I'm not doing it. So after about my 3rd or 4th drink, I just looked at my bodyguards and I said, listen, I want to get the hell out of here. Take me back to my hotel. I go back to the hotel I go upstairs into the VIP lounge. The room I had access to it, and top floor of the hotel kind of overlooked the city, the port of Spain, and there were a lot of Americans there, and they were all from the oil country, all of the oil companies. So I kind of talked to them, and I said, "Listen, I said this has been an absolutely bizarre, crazy experience coming here." I said it's terrible, and I said they said they agree. They were down on 4 week, 5 week, 6 week, 8 week stints, and then they would go back to the States, go back to their home, and then do another rotation. So the next day, Poison and my bodyguard picked me up, and we go see the marina, we go see the boat company, and it would have been a great project. It would have been an absolutely awesome project. But with everything that I'm seeing and what's going on and the conditions there was no way. So the one bright spot of this trip, which was really amazing, was I had met Fred's CFO of the holding company of all the businesses he had there. I had to meet her, and kind of she took me through, kind of what their vision was. And the one thing I didn't realize that in Trinidad, the nationalities are Indian, from India. Being it was a British colony way back when, they brought a lot of Indian people to the islands. I think it's 40% Indian, 40% black, and then a mixture is the rest of the 20%. So she had said it happened to be the day of Diwali, which is the Indian celebration of light. It's a big holiday for Indian people. And me being a foodie, I love trying different types of food. So she invited me to go to her house and enjoy some homemade Indian food and with her and her family. And I said, absolutely. And I said, it was great. We had a wonderful time. The food was amazing. I have no idea what the hell I ate, but it was amazing. But then they said, well, let's go out and drive around and have some beers. I said, okay. So we jump in the car, we drive around with my bodyguard and go to a bar. She runs in, grabs a couple of beers, and then we're in the car driving around. She's like, you can do anything you want here. I'm like, okay. So we're drinking beers, driving around. And we saw a lot of children, a lot of, 18, 15, even 10-year-olds that were missing limbs. A lot of walking around with crutches. And I said, what's up with that? And they said, well, the medical system here is horrible. And if you happen to get a cut and you get a really bad infection, they don't really have the means or the ways to treat it as they would in America or in Europe or in Canada. So they amputate, which is absolutely horrible. It was, when you see things like this, it reminds you how amazing of a country we live in. And it's not perfect, far from perfect, very divided right now, but I will tell you, going to a third world country will give you a total appreciation. And I'm not talking about going to a resort in Jamaica. I'm not talking about going to the BVI's and a beautiful resort. I'm talking about real world. It gives you a real appreciation of where we live. So as we're driving around, we go past this one building and it's all shot up, blown up. And I said, what happened here? And they said, oh, the police arrested a drug dealer, a drug kingpin from up in the mountain. So when they brought him into the station and then they shipped him out to the main prison in Port of Spain, they decided to shoot it up and toss hand grenades down like it was raining and just blow up the place, blow up the police station. I couldn't believe it. I was there for 5 days. I wanted to get out of there after 24 hours. I had enough. But it was an amazing experience. I came back to the States and I saw Fred, went to his house, and he was all excited, thinking that I had this amazing trip. It was wonderful. It was incredible. And I told him, I said, Fred, I said, for all the money in the world, I wouldn't do it. I said, you could pay me $1 million. And I said, I'm not doing it. I said, a couple of reasons. One is it is not a safe place. In talking to the locals and talking to the CFO, many years, 10, 15 years prior to 2014, 2015, it was a beautiful place, a very safe place. But due to drugs, gangs, corruption, a lot of drugs and gang members from Venezuela come over to the island and have made it a very, very tough place to live. And then I actually told him about Poison trying to give me his money to go play with and then split it. And he didn't believe me whatsoever. He didn't believe me. He's like, that's a bunch of bullshit. No way. She's been with me for 17 years. I said, well, she's been robbing you for I don't know how long, but she's robbing you. So based on that alone, he was upset and he did confront her. So if I went back, I was getting a bullet in the head. No doubt about it. That she or somebody, one of her posse was going to kill me. No doubt. But I thanked him for the trip. I said it was interesting. And I told him I was really disappointed that he didn't believe me when I told him that she tried to buy me off or whatever. So he went to prison. While he was in prison, Poison, her brother, sold the casino, the marina, and the boat building company to themselves for $1 and forged all the paperwork, forged his name, signed everything. And he lost it all, which was absolutely horrible. Good news is, after he served his time, he did get permission to leave the U.S. to go back to Trinidad. He was able to prove that everything was forged, and he got all of his companies back. And now Poison, her brother, are now in a Trinidad jail, which I don't know if they still are, but I can tell you I can't even imagine what that would be like. Well, the reason why this is called $4 million and 3 bodyguards and a trip to hell is that Fred went away for bringing $4 million into this country undeclared. So he got in trouble for that. And it's a shame. He's a really good guy. Really, really good guy. Interesting guy. Super, super interesting guy. But that's my crazy story. I can still see it like it was yesterday in my mind. It left that much of a imprint on my memory. Funny, one of my friends who's a retired lieutenant state trooper in New Jersey, I told him this story, and he goes, Dave, he goes, I was a trooper for 25 years, and I didn't see any crazy shit like this. He goes, the biggest thing I ever did was shoot a horse and put a horse down because it broke its leg, and it had to be put down. I said, well, you haven't lived until you've been guarded with 3 Rastafarians with AK-47s and a chick with hot pink hair and a bunch of piercings in her face put a Glock right in your face with a finger on the trigger. I said, you haven't lived until you've done that. True story, craziest thing that I've experienced so far in my life. But I hope you enjoyed the story. A little crazy. And until next time, thanks for watching.